So this is a recording of my ex-vegan story on Tom Clark's channel. Have a listen.
So any subscribers I can get, I really appreciate. People, please leave comments and let me know how I can do better videos or what your experience is like. And today I have a guest. My guest is Karina. I know her as Karina. We're pals on Facebook. We spent a lot of time in a group called Autistic Carnivores, and we spent a lot of time swapping scientific data and sending each other links to studies and discussing stuff like that online. So I thought, who better to have on the Ketogenic Fasting Project than my pal Karina. So Karina, say hi to everybody.
Hi.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, it took a while until I worked myself up to it because it's the first time ever recording.
Yeah, it's intimidating the first time. I did a lot of videos where I didn't appear on camera. I did little slideshows and I did little voiceovers, and I was deathly afraid of like showing up on camera. And then one day, I just decided to do it, and I never went back. So I get it. I think I've had several people who said they want to do videos, and then they kind of chickened out. They didn't. They're afraid to do a little interview. So I understand. I was there once too. But once you get a few under your belt, and people give you some, tell you how much it helped them and how much they enjoyed it and stuff like that, then it becomes so rewarding. You want to do it again.
Yeah, you get used to it probably.
Oh yeah. I used to hate listening to my voice, but I listened to all these before I put them up to make sure nothing went wrong. After a few of them, you're like, yeah, you don't even think about how much you hate your own voice. So, so you're all the way in Switzerland, right?
Yes.
And it's 9 something at night there, and I'm in sunny Southern California. It's a little afternoon, almost 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So here we are, having an international conversation about carnivore, veganism, autism, the whole ball of wax. So you're going to tell us a little bit about your story. Where does your story with all this begin?
Well, yeah, it's a long story. So, I mean, I was a vegetarian at about age 20 because I saw some movies about animals being tortured, same old story. So, but it was just vegetarianism, and I stayed on that diet for about 18, 19 years. And already then I noticed some issues, like probably the soy wasn't so good for me, and dairy later. I became aware that I'm actually allergic, but that was many years later. So yeah, so I was a vegetarian for a long time, and already then I had some issues. I had a burnout in 2007, but and I was a sugar addict. That's another topic. Of course, here we have nice cheese, nice chocolate. I was so addicted to both of them, and 2007 I weaned off of both cold turkey at once.
Wow.
And it was so hard to do. It went crazy the first month. But I noted some little bit of a difference in the energy level because I mean, burnout, that's really no fun. And after eating, like, my energy just went down. I had to sit for about half an hour, couldn't do anything. And that fatigue hit, and constant exhaustion, depression, anxiety, many issues, like, even as a vegetarian. Yeah. So that was that. And 2014, I had the idea I could try veganism. I watched Earthlings.
Actually, it was through Ellen DeGeneres that I came across Earthlings. I was inspired through her watching this and forced myself to watch it. Yeah, and after that I was like convinced that veganism is the only way. So you see how celebrities have influence. And now Ellen DeGeneres is not even a vegan anymore, same as me.
Gosh, that's a horrible documentary.
Narrated by Joaquin Phoenix, of all people.
Huh? Say again?
It was narrated by Joaquin Phoenix. I noticed that at the end. I didn't know it was him. So what did you eat in a typical day when you were a vegetarian?
As a vegetarian, at the time I was in love with Indian food, and you can have really nice vegetarian meals. At the time I also was still eating cheese and eggs, so I also ate a lot of pizza and other meals that have cheese. Of course, since I grew up in Switzerland, I also loved cheese, and Switzerland really has very, very tasty cheese. So raclette is one famous cheese recipe, melted cheese, and you eat that with potato, veggies, and whatever you like, and you can make a vegetarian version, of course. This is how it is traditionally served. Then you have the other famous Swiss cheese fondue. This is melted cheese, and traditionally you eat it with bread. And after that you are completely done, because it's a very, very heavy meal. But as a vegetarian, you really don't miss out so much. You still have cheese and eggs, usually combined with pasta, so you don't miss much. But definitely I can say the vegetarian diet is still deficient in nutrients. I never felt as energetic as a vegetarian as I do now when I eat meat.
Actually tried different forms of veganism. You know, one doesn't work, you try the next.
Mm-hmm.
And I really tried everything organic, of course, lots of salads. Unfortunately, lots of soy. At the time, I didn't know. Yeah, I had no idea about all that stuff.
Umami and tofu and quinoa and brown rice all the time. I was like, I thought that was all good for me, and I was just getting sicker and sicker.
Yeah, it doesn't make you healthy. You think it's a good food, and it's quite the opposite. And yeah, and I even tried fruitarianism for a year. Yeah.
What types of fruits are available where you live?
Oh, actually everything, you know.
Yeah. It's a global market, right?
Yeah. So you buy, and I mean, Switzerland has a lot of fruits. Like in summer you have strawberries, cherries, apples, everything. And then of course the other fruits, imported ones, mangoes and bananas, whatever. yeah, so I tried to detox, and then went quite the other way. I felt good about 2 weeks as a fruitarian, and then after that it went totally south. Like my teeth became so sensitive. I couldn't even brush my teeth with salts anymore. It was like burning almost.
Really?
Couldn't do that anymore. And yeah, and I cheated a lot on fruitarianism when I was in Great Britain in winter for vacation.
When you cheated, what did you eat?
Vegan food, of course, like those burgers and whatever. They have really a lot of possibilities in London, especially. You go to those vegan restaurants, you have many choices, and I wanted to try all those foods.
In London, it's truly a paradise for vegans. So many vegan restaurants have opened. So in London in particular, you have no problems being a vegan, unfortunately.
So you're cheating on fruitarianism, but not necessarily on vegetarian or veganism.
No, I was really strict. As a vegan, totally strict.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, no issues there. But as a fruitarian, I cheated with vegan foods. I had a debate in 2018 that shook me quite a lot, but it took about 1 year longer until I was ready to give it a chance and try some meat again. That's how deep that indoctrination is, that brainwashing, and how guilty you feel to try meat again. That was so funny. I was in the health food store and I was looking at the meats, and then I was so afraid, oh, every moment some vegan will jump at me.
Traitor.
So much guilt, yeah. Of course, nothing happened. I tried first paleo. That didn't work. Because I was still bloated, still many issues. Then I took away all the nuts, all the seeds, and then I heard about the oxalate issue.
The evil oxalates.
And then that was it. And then I stopped eating fruits, I stopped eating everything else, and just went for meat. That's when I became a carnivore. That was about April. Yeah.
April. Yeah, I think a lot of people aren't aware that, in particular, people on the spectrum, autistic people, have very high oxalate levels. It has something to do with an inability to eliminate oxalates from the system. So if you eat foods like, let's say, spinach or something that are high in oxalates, they tend to build up in your body, which is bad. So you form oxalate crystals. And I don't think anybody really knows why that is, but it's probably an important thing to note. So should we get into the pictures a little bit?
Yeah.
All right, so we got a picture. Let's see if I get this right.
Yeah. So yeah, on the left side, that was me as a vegan, and you can see I was really extremely pale, very dry skin, and that's just a phase. I had so many issues, and that's the main reason why I tried meat. That's I could no longer pretend that I was fine on a vegan diet. For example, at work, I had back pain. I had to sit down after about 30 minutes of standing. I was in pain. I had to sit down and rest. I was constantly exhausted. Then migraines was an issue.
I had a lot of back pain myself.
Yeah.
Before Carnivore, a lot, really bad. So.
Yeah, it's hard to deal with.
Did you have a lot of digestive issues?
Yeah, that was one of the main problems. I was extremely bloated, gassy, and it always shifted from diarrhea to constipation, and I was feeling extremely uncomfortable in my body. I also had joint pains, chronic hip pain had developed, muscle pain, feeling sore after exercise. I couldn't exercise for a long time. Actually, since I had the burnout, I wasn't able to really exercise. I was always sore or got a migraine whenever I tried a little bit of exercise. Didn't work anymore. And before that, I actually ran some marathons. So the body was completely depleted, probably, of minerals. Yeah. And on the vegan diet, I also had pre-diabetic symptoms. Like I had to run to the toilet all the time, was thirsty all the time, bad wound healing, all of that. Cold, constant cold. And yeah, also hypothyroid symptoms. Yeah, it started really to worry me, and that's why I just had to decide, okay, I try the meat, and that was a true game changer. Not at first on the paleo diet, it didn't work so well because it's basically veganism with meat, the way I did it. And lots of carbohydrates, and that was my issue, the carbs. So yeah, I had to take the carbs away, and then you can see that's 2 months in Carnivore. I'm on the picture, I'm sitting in a steakhouse in front of a steak, and that's why I smile. My first steak. And yeah, it took a while until the body adapted to being a fat burner instead of carb burner. It took a while, about 6 weeks at least, but then so many things started to change, and now I'm not in pain anymore. I have no depression. Actually, everything is gone. Joint pain. I can now exercise without feeling sore. I mean, it's not the way you exercise. I'm just lifting a little bit of weight, not much, just in the beginning. Yeah, but I'm feeling so good, and I really have hope now. Yeah, that's so much healing going on, and also the mood is so different than it was on the vegan diet. That's amazing.
Yeah, I kind of had a similar experience. Like you said, you used to run marathons. I was in the gym lifting a lot of weights. I did cardio too, but I got to a point where like I'd wake up the next morning and my hands hurt so bad I could barely straighten them out. And one day I couldn't even turn the doorknob to get out of my bedroom, and that's how bad my joint and muscle pain was. I eventually had to give up. So it took me a long time before I came around to a low carb and then a carnivore diet. But kind of in a lot of ways got very parallel stories. This is the group that one of the groups we're in together. We're actually in a bunch of groups together, I guess.
Yeah, almost all the carnivore groups now.
Yeah. Yeah, there's quite a few carnivore groups, but this one here is Autistic Carnivore is the one that we interact in a lot. So.
Yeah, and having a lot of fun.
Lots of fun. Yeah.
Interesting discussions.
This, you said, was an influential book, The Vegetarian Myth by Lierre Keith. I thought this was a fantastic book myself.
Mm. Yeah, I read that one right at the beginning when I was shifting into meat eating. And yeah, as I said before, when you are in that brainwashed state of veganism and you feel guilty about eating meat and you don't want to do it, but your health problems push you to do it, that's the right book, because Lierre Keith, she was in the same situation. I actually watched a video a few days ago where she explained she was the last one of her group of friends who caved in. She really didn't want to do it, and she was in so much pain and still hold on to veganism because it's your identity and you cannot let it go so easily, and it's so hard to get through to this decision. So it's never easy to start to eat meat again.
The vegetarian myth, and I need to tell you, Lierre, thank you for being with us. And Robin and I have read aloud maybe a handful of books together, and yours is one of those few. This has been riveting.
Thank you.
Well, it is both. You know, some of the writing is lyrical, it's passionate, but what you are saying is so critical for us to hear now, many of us. Because what you're saying, let me see if I say it right, that the vegetarian way of eating, which many people are turning to because of climate change and so on, doesn't nurture the human being, doesn't nurture our bodies, and it's destroying the planet.
Right.
Have it right?
Yeah.
So let's unpack those two and talk to us about why isn't a vegetarian diet, which sounds like the right way to go, why isn't it good for people?
Well, there's a human template that needs certain nutritional elements, and they are not provided by a vegetarian diet. You can go back 4 million years to the very beginning of the human race, and there is no question that we were hunters. This is what we ate for literally 4 million years, and it's the reason we have really big brains. We have the largest brain of any primate, and we have the smallest digestive tract, which is to say, how are you going to feed that brain? I mean, our brains use 25% of the energy, our energy needs, and you're not going to get that out of plants. There just isn't enough energy. So it's quite clear that we must have been eating meat to get brains that are this large. And you know, the other thing that you find in the archaeological record is that humans are long and tall and strong, and they keep all their teeth, and their bones are disease-free until you hit agriculture. And then suddenly everybody shrinks 6 inches and they lose their teeth and their bones are riddled with disease.
Whoa.
And we have a concept, the diseases of civilization. There is no such thing as the diseases of hunter-gatherers.
Let me back up. Part of how you got into this is you yourself were a vegan.
Yes.
For 20 years. So
20 years.
You're looking at not anything from any animals, right?
Right.
So I feel that in with the story as well. I mean, it's not just that template, but you were trying. Why be a vegan for you?
Well, I started very young. I was 16, and I met another vegan. And at that age, you know, you're very idealistic and you're very impressionable. And I was somebody who, even at that age, was very impassioned about, you know, saving the planet and all these political concerns about oppression. And it all comes together when you learn about veganism, because here you can, you know, stop oppressing animals, and you can stop hurting the earth, and you can feed hungry people. And there's this whole, it makes a total picture. You get this complete plan if you just eat this way. And at age 16, I had no counter information, and I thought it seemed like it made sense. And so,
and it's wonderful, and it's honorable, and it's laudable, and you can do just that, and it affects much more than just yourself.
Yeah, except none of it's true, and that's the problem.
Yeah, and so that's the perfect book to read to pull you out of that brainwashed state, and it also informs you about the whole ecosystem and about agriculture, and yeah, it's so much information in that book, so I can highly recommend it.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier, about how we there's kind of a, on one hand, she's sort of an angry, extreme feminist. On the other hand, she's an extraordinary realist when she talks about how she, through her own trials and tribulations of really committing to being a vegan, she discovered the truth that there's no food without death, and that meat is our real food, right? And it has been forever. And I think that kind of points to this thought that I always have, that veganism is really the attempt to deny what humans really are, right? And that's part of the impossibility of veganism.
Yeah, it's a completely unnatural diet for humans.
Right.
And
Exactly.
people get sick from it.
Yeah, people do get sick. It seems like the person that can thrive on a vegan diet is the rare sort of exception.
It's really an exception. I haven't met one.
And at the very least, most of them require supplementation, right?
Yeah.
Vitamins and
There
stuff.
are issues. Yeah, I have a friend, and she her vision got bad, and she has depressions, and yeah, there are a lot of issues. Yes. Sad thing, she cannot stop.
Huh. How about Defending Beef? Now, this is a book I have not read. I read Leara Keith's book and did a little book report on it a while back, and I have a video on YouTube if people are interested. But Defending Beef, I have not read yet.
And how important it is to do this kind of agriculture, including the ruminants. Leara Keith talks about this a lot in her book as well. Yeah, and this author, she's married to a farmer. She was, as far as I know, a vegetarian. I'm not sure if she was a vegan. I don't remember, but she is married to a farmer, so she knows a lot about this, and she also changed her mind.
I'm pretty sure that they interviewed her on Human Performance Outliers. So if people want to get a briefing on this, if you go to YouTube or just about any podcast service and look for Human Performance Outlier, you should be able to see an interview with Nicolette Han Nyman.
Anyway, so these, for the record, these are generic cows I pulled off the internet. They are not Nicollets cows, so don't take them as they are. Hey, Nicolette, for the people that don't know your story, can you briefly just kind of give us a, and Zach's been recording this, by the way, just so you know, but can you just give us a kind of a brief description of your background a little bit, and then we can kind of get into discussing stuff?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Michigan, and I grew up there, and as a kid spent a lot of time outside and was really interested in nature, and I majored in biology in college, and then after college I became I went to law school and became a lawyer, and I worked for several years as a lawyer for well, first as a prosecuting attorney and then for law firms. And then I started working for environmental groups, and I worked for the National Wildlife Federation first. And of course, their work is really about protecting wildlife for the most part, but you know, just sort of general ethics, and my work mostly related to water quality. And then I went from that job to working for Bobby Kennedy Jr. in New York. He heads a group called Waterkeeper Alliance, and I worked for them as an environmental lawyer. And after I'd just been there for a couple of weeks, Bobby Kennedy asked me to launch a project for the organization that was going to focus on pollution related to the livestock industry. And so that actually became my specialty, and I did that for 2 years, and I left that job in 2002. And from that point forward, I got really interested in this whole question of how the environmental issues surrounding livestock through that job. And I had met a lot of farmers and ranchers in that work, including Bill Nyman, who's the founder of the Nyman Ranch Network of Farmers and Ranchers. And I decided to leave that job, and I wanted to write about this issue and probably continue working in some other capacity. And I ended up marrying Bill Nyman instead of pursuing another job at the time, and the kind of unexpectedly direction. And then I moved out to California. I was living in New York. And he, of course, was already living and working on a ranch in Northern California. And when I moved here, I just assumed I was a vegetarian and had been for a long time. And I sort of assumed I would not be involved with the ranching operation because there are vegetarians in the ranching field. And it seemed like a bit of a leap. But when I actually moved here and started living on the ranch, I got really interested in what we were doing. And I started working on the ranch. And actually got really super interested in the ranching side of it. So I ended up not pursuing another environmental lawyer position and ended up just writing about my work and working on the ranch. And I did that for about 7 years. And I wrote a book called Righteous Pork Chop, which was my first book. And it was arguing in that book that, you know, animals are a really important part of the food system and the landscape and the farm economy, but at the same time, we weren't raising them the best possible way in the world. So that it was making an argument for improving the way livestock are raised. And then after I wrote that book, I did a lot of speaking and writing about this whole question. I sort of continued working on that, but I got more and more concerned about the public conversation, which was people were getting more aware of the problems in mainstream livestock production, which was good because I think there needs to be a lot of improvement there. But at the same time, the answer that was kind of coming out a lot of times in conversations was we need to get rid of, you know, that part of the food system, and that we need to get rid of animals, and we need to get rid of the food, you know, the food from animals on our plates and get them off the landscapes and so forth. And so I increasingly got worried that was, you know, this kind of oversimplified version of the whole question, and that answer, which was not only not going to be helpful, but it was actually going to make things worse, both from a dietary and from an ecological standpoint. So I wrote a book called Defending Beef about 4 years ago now, and that's been most of my focus since then. And just this making the case that the animals actually play a really important role in the whole food system and in the sort of the larger ecological system of the earth, and that we really need those animals as part of the food system. So I've always been advocating for better systems, and that's kind of my but increasingly I'm sort of focusing on pushing back against this notion that, you know, we need to get rid of the animals. So that's kind of become my specialty. And actually I'm working on another book right now, which is about the whole question of omnivory and whether humans, you know, need to eat an omnivorous diet or not. And as you might have to answer to that question is going to be yes.
I think you're right. She was an attorney or something like that. She wound up marrying a cattle rancher and learning about cattle and modern cattle husbandry, as opposed to the dismal sort of thing you might think goes on in a movie from like Earthlings. You know, I watched last night. You know, Earthlings is basically a horror show from start to finish, and you think all the animal food is produced that way. So she paints a very different picture, and you know, there's a lot of cattle ranchers, at least I know in the States here, that, you know, they take very good care of their cattle. You know, the cattle have a good life. They're not tortured and abused and enslaved like people would have you believe. You know, they're well fed, they're well cared for. You know, and eventually, yeah, they're put down and they're turned into food. But you know, if they were lived in the wild, they'd be set upon by bears and wolves, and even birds of prey like eagles and stuff like that would be picking them off left and right. So.
Yeah, they really have a good life.
You think California or Switzerland has the happiest cows?
Oh, that's difficult to say.
So those are Swiss cows. They look pretty happy and they are all outside, at least part of their life.